You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Cards to the Moon podcast. My name is Clark from 5cardguys.com. You can also find me at 5cardguys on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and on TikTok. So today's episode is going to be a little different. As some of you know, I just set up a booth for the first time this past weekend at the Sport Card Expo, the biggest card show in Canada. And in a nutshell, what a tremendous experience it was for me. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I learned a lot. And I'm actually putting together a video for YouTube that I hope to put out later this week or early next week about my experience vending for the very first time. I'll also try to put a short IG reel together of some of my top lessons from my experience setting up at the expo. And we'll definitely have a full debrief podcast episode with Will and Roy, who are also set up with me at the card show. But for today, this episode is for all of you loyal listeners of the pod, an appreciation for just tuning in every week, whether you're listening to us doing your household chores or on your long commute to work. I was honestly just blown away at those who came by to say hi to me in person. Some of you guys weren't even from the Greater Toronto area, and it's mind-blowing to me that you would come visit, and also a reminder for us here on the podcast that there are actually people who listen every week. So that definitely keeps us going. And again, we appreciate all of you. It was also cool to meet some of our Canadian listeners. You know, I mentioned this a few times, but most of our listeners, according to our data, are actually from the US. But the hometown, the Canadian support that we get is always appreciated, of course. We already have a lot in common beyond sports cards, like the fact we can empathize with one another over the World Series loss against the Dodgers last season, or even just recently, the Raptors getting bounced by the Cavs in the first round. But all that aside, I just again really do want to thank you all for supporting the pod just by listening every week. And I can't wait to bring you guys even more entertaining episodes coming up this year. All right, so for today's episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play clips featuring some of our podcast listeners who dropped by the Sport Card Expo, and you'll definitely hear from some of our podcast co-hosts as well. But to start, as all of you loyal listeners know, we end each Tuesday episode with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. But for this episode, we're going to play Pick One off the top. On day one of the expo, I was able to ask some of our pod listeners to weigh in on 3 cards that I presented to them in person. It's the 3 cards I own that I talk about the most on the pod. This is my 3 most valuable cards. So yeah, let's hear what some of them decided to choose and why. And I'll be back after this clip. All right, I'm here for the first time setting up at the expo, and it's been great meeting a lot of our listeners, our podcast listeners, and I have one right in front of me. What's your name?
Name is Matt.
Matt, and he's with his son. You just got to the show. Anything that you saw that you really caught your eye?
Nothing, at least from a card perspective, but the space, they really expanded into like the second area, so that's really impressive.
I was going to ask, because I just saw our friend Roy, who was a co-host, and I love the layout. It's different than before, so I guess you agree, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely more walking space.
More walking space, more space in general, so I love that. All right, I'm doing this show exclusive for our podcast, and everyone knows that we do a regular weekly segment called Pick One. And if you're a loyal listener of the pod, you know I talk about these 3 cards the most because they're my best cards. And I have it on display here at the Sport Card Expo here in Toronto. One of them is the Luka Doncic, the Blue Refractor Rookie Auto, number 299. Of course, I got the Bobby Witt Superfractor Home Field Advantage insert card. And then I got the Mike Trout BGS 9.5 Auto 10 Refractor number to 500. So pick one out of these three. What are you going for and why?
Personally, I'm taking the Luka. I'm a basketball guy. I know I'm wearing a baseball jersey right now. You can't see.
He's wearing a Mariners jersey, but yes.
But yeah, I'm taking the Luka. I mean, he's not super close to a championship, but I guess he's kind of could be there.
Sure. I mean, they're still in the playoffs, right? As of this recording.
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I can't argue with that. I'm very curious to see what all our other listeners say. But we got one vote for Luka. Matt, thanks for dropping by. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys. Loyal listener to the pod. Keep up the good work.
All right, I found another listener of the pod. This is the best part of setting up. This is my first time setting up at the show, and I love when people come up and say, like, oh, I heard the pod. I heard your voice before. So who am I speaking with?
Kevin.
Kevin. And your son?
Gabriel.
Gabriel. All right. Glad to see you guys. And, if you've been listening to the pod, we always finish our show with our regular weekly Pick One segment. And this is when we present usually 2 cards, but today I'm going to present 3 cards to Kevin here. I got the Mike Trout Refractor number to 500, his rookie auto, Bobby Witt's home field advantage Super Refractor 1 of 1, and the Luka Doncic rookie auto number to 99 blue. And they all go for about $12K US right now, if you can believe it. So if you're going to pick one, what would you pick? I'm curious.
Well, I'm not a big basketball guy, so I'm going to kick the Luka out right away. Mm-hmm. And I'm more of I love me some Mike Trout. So let's go with Mike Trout. Yes. And now that Ohtani's gone, maybe he'll start picking up the pace, and maybe they'll go win a World Series or something, Go with Mike Trout.
Mike Trout. One vote for Mike Trout. You know me. I can't quit Mike Trout either.
No. You can't. Don't do it. Don't quit Mike Trout.
And he's having an amazing year. So knock on wood, he stays healthy. Yeah. Last question. How are you guys enjoying the show? I know you just got here, but have you been to the expo before?
Yeah, we came in the fall. First time I brought him in the fall. So far so good. He loves the stay and look around, and then he loves the hotel trip too. So we make a couple days out of it, and so far so good. But yeah, it's great.
Sweet. So you're from out of town?
We're from Niagara. We're about an hour away, so we're not far. But yeah, got to make a trip of it.
I love it. And I was saying my kid's 9 years old too, and his favorite part is just sitting behind here and talking with people as well. So
awesome.
All right. The best part about this podcast is meeting our podcast listeners. I think I'm up to 5 now. This is my co-host, Will, if you listen to our pod. I met him earlier. That's why. But I'm glad he came back. And fun segment we're doing live at the show is our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And the 3 I'm going to present to you are the ones I talk about a lot on the podcast. It's because they're my 3 best cards. So I got, again, the Mike Trout Refractor Rookie Auto, Bobby Witt Jr., Super Refractor Home Field Advantage, and then the Luka Doncic, of course, blue. So if you had to pick one, which one are you choosing and why?
If I'm choosing for my PC, I'm taking Bobby Witt because I like the 101 Super Refractor, and I think he has a great future. Mm-hmm. If I'm buying to sell it, I'm probably taking Luka because I think that has a lot of room for growth too, but he's a pretty popular guy at the moment. So yeah,
good choices. If you had to choose one right now, because I'm going to do a poll right afterwards, but which one would you choose? Would you go with your heart, your PC, or would you go with the brain, the mind to flip?
Always PC. So I'd be taking Bobby.
True collector. True collector. I love it. Last question. How are you enjoying the show so far? I know we talked a bit off there, but your early thoughts on the Sport Card Expo this year.
Yeah, it's overwhelming to say the least. There's too much to take in. A lot of long line if you're trying to have anything graded. Other than that, it's great to see all these cards out. Stuff you don't get to see every day, right? So, or stuff you may never see again. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Plus you get to meet podcast hosts who you like listening to. So that's always fun too.
Appreciate you, Craig. And I know you're going to be back another day. This is why we were just joking that people come for multiple days because it's too much to catch in one day, right?
It's far too much for one day. Yeah. It's probably too much for 3 days, realistically.
I love this. This is only the first day of the pod, and we got our 4th or 5th podcast listener dropping by to say hi. This time it's Omar. He said he's a regular listener. I also hear this commonly that people that do their household chores or on their commute put our podcast on. So that's one of the main reasons why we're talking off air, why I do it so consistently, because I know you guys are listening. So anyway, Omar's here. He's going to do a pick one like we've been asking all our podcast listeners. And these are the 3 cards. I don't have to repeat it. I've been repeating it all this time. But if you had to pick one, Omar, which one would you choose and why?
I'd probably go with Bobby Witt Jr. at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I was pretty high on him entering the season. I think he's had a decent start, but not what the Royals are hoping.
Yeah.
But in terms of upside potential, I'd probably go with him. Plus Superfractor,
Yes.
can't go wrong. I know you love your Trout and Doncic, but in terms of upside from here, I'm going with Witt.
Awesome. Bobby Witt, if I'm choosing this pick one, Bobby Witt all the way. The Superfractor, it's different when you see it actually in person, right? So
I've actually, never held one. Only seen them online. It's actually pretty sick, even with the dim lighting here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that's a cool card. I didn't realize you own this.
Yes, I own it, and it's so funny you mentioned a dim light. When we first set up, we're like, it's kind of dimmer than the other room, isn't it? It's not just our eyes, right?
No, it's not. But yeah, maybe they'll amp up the wattage for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So
We'll put our request in. Speaking of the show, how do you like the show? You've been to the expo before, I gather?
yeah, I was here, years before COVID, and it was all in one room, not as busy. So it's pretty cool to see it grow, and all these other YouTubers from the States.
Yeah.
Talk to some other dealers from like Texas, and even with all the border hassles, it's still worth their while to come up here. So it's nice. It's good for the hobby, and it's just cool to see different people enjoying the hobby in different ways.
Totally agree with you, and it's funny how I was mentioning to another guy. A lot of our listeners are from the States, and so we got DMs, and then one guy from the Dominican came by to say hello. So I love how the hobby's bringing us all together.
Well, I love how you guys are always dropping your Toronto fandom in there, so it's like good,
Always.
especially all the other American. Because it seems like you guys have a lot of U.S. listeners.
Mostly 90%.
Yeah. So it's good to represent Toronto.
Always.
Even though I'm still reeling from Game 7. But we'll get over it at some point. Therapy will pay off.
Yeah, we'll get through it together for sure.
Definitely.
All right, so from those clips you just heard, a big shout out to Matt and his son Jordan, Kevin and his son Gabriel, Craig, who came down from Ottawa, Omar from Toronto, and he brought his friend Brian, who also listens to our pod, so I want to shout him out as well. Brian did mention off air just how he enjoyed listening to our pod because it seemed more conversational. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we're all friends on the podcast, and I was sharing how we started the pod because we were talking and chatting about sports cards anyway, and all we really needed to do was press record. Anyway, thanks to all those guys who played Pick 1 with us on day 1. And at the end of that last clip, I mentioned someone from the Dominican Republic flew all the way to Toronto to attend the expo. His name is Pablo, and his son also happens to live in Toronto, so it worked well for him. But I think Pablo was there day 1, day 2, and day 3, and he came back to visit us a few times throughout the show, which we didn't mind at all. But on day 2, I wanted to get his insight on what he was looking for when he goes to card shows. I felt like I needed to shift strategies after only making $20 on day 1. So I called this next segment Market Research. And here's what Pablo had to say, as well as Brett, who came all the way from Boston, another listener of the pod. But before I play the clip, I think I owe Brett an apology because on that Friday, we knew the Celtics and Sixers were going to Game 7, and I mentioned I think Boston was going to win, and I might have jinxed it. But if it's any consolation, us Raptors fans will be sitting on the sidelines watching the rest of the NBA playoffs along with our Celtics fans. Okay, so first, here's Pablo. All right, so this is day 2 of the Sport Card Expo, and we have a special guest because he flew all the way from Dominican Republic. He left a comment, a really nice comment on our podcast as well, that he listens from DR. So appreciate all our international listeners. His name's Pablo. Welcome to the pod.
Hello. Thank you. I'm very glad to be here and meet you.
Likewise, it's always great to meet people in person, especially at the shows. So I have a question for all our day 2 guests, and I'm wondering, because this is my first time setting up at the show, trying to get as much market research as possible. Okay, so when you approach, I know this is not your first time at a card show, but when you approach a booth, what's the first thing you look at? Like, what's your general approach?
Just generally looking for things I know I'm gonna sell fast to make my money go faster. What I use now, this trip, I'm looking more for Pokemon more than baseball. Usually, I buy a lot of baseball, but Pokemon is really hot. So right now, Pokemon.
Makes sense to me. Pokemon is white hot. That's why we have our co-host Roy on the pod every month, just to talk about the market. Okay, so when you come to a booth and you see, okay, there's Pokemon cards, there's cards that you're interested in. Do you look at any case in particular? Like, where does your eye go first?
My eye usually goes first after Pikachu, Charizard, and there are a lot of people asking for cards. So I usually look for those that are people usually ask for.
Okay, so when you look at my booth, don't look at just the cards, but okay, he likes the high end Pokemon. Is there what kind of layout do you usually like when you see a booth?
I like your layout. I prefer to buy not graded because it moves faster. At
really?
the end, yes. People are more tend to buy lower end, cheaper cards than higher end cards. But you have some real good cards here.
So you look for the raw because you can move those faster.
Raw, yes, basically raw. And for examples, things I know move faster.
Okay.
And I see you have a good layout of the Otani 50/50 too. That's very, very hot right now, Otani.
Yes. So you prefer, like yesterday I put them in boxes, people can look through it. Just displaying out there, you think is better approach?
I like both ways. Imagine people like to hunt in boxes also. Yesterday I spent like half an hour, 1 hour looking through boxes too.
Okay, that's good advice because I got to mix it up then.
Yes, because that way you exhibit more cards. Like this, you are limited to whatever fits in your display.
Good advice. Last question. Do you see anything behind us? Like when people set up behind on the shelves, is that hard to see, or do you look at those too?
I like that too because there you can see everything that's available. For example, yesterday I was looking for booster bundles, and I had to ask sometimes because they were not available there.
Okay.
But it's good to see what you have available. The more space you have to exhibit, I think is the best.
More space, the better. Okay. I think Pablo is your ideal guy to go shopping because he likes all the different layouts. I know some people are more particular, but I appreciate you, Pablo, especially as a podcast listener, and I'm glad you dropped by.
Thank you, and nice to meet you too.
All right, day two. I'm here with Brett, another podcast listener for the last couple of years, so I always appreciate you guys tuning in. And the question I had for our listeners today is, when you come to the booth, Brett, what do you look for? Is there something, kind of layout or I'm just curious. I'm just doing personal market research to help me sell some cards today.
Yeah, I look for prices and I look for cards that I know what the prices should be and see if it's in the ballpark. And if it's outrageous, I usually just keep walking. If it's close, then I'll stop and look around some more, see if there's some of the cards on my list that I'm looking for.
I love that because we talked about this on the pod, right? If you price them unrealistically, they're going to keep walking. So I try to go closest to comps as possible. So there you go. It works. And are you from the area? Are you just visiting in town? Or?
Flew in from Boston for the day to pick up a card for my collection. So, yep.
Okay. Well, what are you looking for? Anything in particular?
It was a 1940 Milt Schmidt. So,
that's very specific. Any reason why for that one?
I prearranged it. So it's for the set registry, the all-time Boston rookies. So, yep.
More of a vintage collector?
So it's an all-time Boston. So it's everyone from Tatum back to Cy Young. So, yep. Okay. So that's the collection.
And Chicago's not that far. So do you usually go to National or no?
I've been once. Yep. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Not this year.
not this year. Yep. All right, Brett. Appreciate you. And thanks for being on the pod.
All right.
Okay, thanks to Pablo and Brett again for coming onto the pod, and of course, being loyal podcast listeners. And both of them actually came from outside of Canada, so extra kudos to you guys. And speaking of coming from out of town, I want to give another big shout out to Quincy, who traveled all the way from Dallas, Texas. He said it was his first time in Toronto, it was his first time at the expo, and one of the main reasons he came was that he heard great things about the expo from our pod, and he wanted to come meet us. So we were very honored at hearing that. And Quincy, like a lot of our podcast listeners, once we know that you're a fan of the pod, we just feel this close kinship almost immediately. It's a weird thing because in a lot of these cases, it is our very first time meeting, not just in person, but ever. And yet, I just feel totally comfortable chatting about cards, family, and life. So again, You're going to hear me say this a lot during this episode, but thank you so much for listening to our little podcast, truly. And we know it's growing too, but the Sports Card podcast community still feels really small in a good way. I also want to shout out Jared, Martin, Rob Wong, DC, and Mike Perricone, all friends of the podcast. It's always really nice to see familiar faces at these shows. And a shout out to Raph, who also stopped by on day 2. And I got to tell you, he has a super unique collection of Pokemon cards, which he showed us at the show. As a judge and staff at some of these Pokemon tournaments, he was telling us how they get awarded unique Pokemon cards that are intended only for them. So in essence, these Pokemon cards are truly scarce. I also know he stopped by Roy's booth as well and showed him his collection, and we both agreed, Roy and I, that he needs to come onto the pod to explain more in depth these cards that he has. So, Raph, look for a DM from us soon. Okay, before I close out this segment, I also asked one more special guest that day who dropped by and wanted to pick his brain on how we were doing at the show. All right, day 2, we got another special guest on the pod. Actually, he's a fellow co-host of the pod. Hyung decided to drop by. Why don't you tell us, the listeners, why you dropped by?
So I originally dropped by because I visited, PSA authentication. I had some memorabilia that I wanted authenticated, but so far it's been pretty crazy. It took me about 45 minutes to find the booth. And then it took me another 45 minutes to find you guys. So I'm happy to be here.
It's not what I want to hear. You know, everyone's like, oh, we didn't even know there was another wing to this Sport Card Expo. So it's not good for business if people are asking that.
Well, yeah, it's not as busy, unfortunately, at this side of the wing, and that's why we're able to do something like this and speak in the middle of the show. But yeah, it's definitely got not the greater, busier part. Sorry about that.
No, I mean, it's still early Friday as we're recording. And compared to Thursday, guess what? It's a lot busier. So everything's relative. I'm happy.
And I think, it's going to be absolutely rammed tomorrow. And it's good because there are ebbs and flows too. I'm sure this section's going to start getting, its love because people start roaming around after they're, in their section or their original section. So I think you're fine. You're going to get the exposure.
That's what I'm hoping for. I mean, you set up at the expo a few years ago, so you know what the old layout was. This is brand new. We're just talking about with other people. They like it. Like, it's more spread out, more space. What do you think about the layout this year compared to, even when you set up in previous years?
I think what I like about the setup, I don't know if they did this previous years, but you could enter from multiple entrances, and which is huge because it's so big that before it was like one entrance and they try squeezing everybody at the main entrance, and then it's very difficult. So I think I don't know if that's true or not. It felt a lot easier to actually get in, which I came from entrance 1. Nobody was there. You just literally walk through, and then you walk first in that smaller booth. So you're like, okay, how big is this? This looks a lot smaller, but then it keeps going for days. Yeah,
that's why I like it spread out like that. So I know you got a chance to walk around, and on the pod, everyone knows we talk about Otani a lot. Do you see any Otanis, or are they scarce?
No, Otani's hot everywhere. Everybody's selling Otani, including you. So I don't know if the demand is going to be as high, but just because pricing is through the roof. But yeah, I know there's a lot of big time Otanis floating around at the show. I think that's everybody's flex piece. It's like, you know what, they know that Otani autos are gonna always go up, so it's like, you know what, grab a couple for the show, have them in the display booth and potentially make a deal of just flipping it. So I think a lot of people had that mindset, and you see a lot of Otanis here.
You don't think it's a trap? We're talking off air. It's like, it's got to come down one of these days. But what's your counter argument to that?
No, there isn't. It's always a trap, but it's whether you or not you want to participate in the trap. And if you do, there's a good chance that you could also profit. So I think that's everybody's mindset. It's like, well, I've said that last year, and I didn't get a chance to buy a big Otani, and the prices are constantly going up. So I think there's so many people that think that way, and they're willing to invest long term, especially because they see that the hobby is long term. So I think a combination of both, it really, drives the prices up. And I don't know if it's going to necessarily stay, we say it's going to come down, but we don't know when that's going to be, unfortunately.
I hate to say it, but I tend to agree with you. I'm trying to sell some of my lower end Otanis to put into a higher end Otani. And I think you got to wish me luck because it's going to be hard to find those kind of deals.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but I will say people are looking for Otani, so I think you're okay. Especially if you offload it as kind of like a all-in-one set or whatever you have for cheap. I think you could. There's so many buying opportunities. I was telling you before, there even Otani inserts that really nobody know about that have enormous amounts of eye appeal. If you look at the history of inserts of even Michael Jordan cards, people start collecting these goats, right? Every card is kind of like a collectible. So I think there's so much opportunity still in Otani, especially raw cards, because a lot of people are realizing, hey, this wasn't worth anything. And now, you know what? I'm selling it for $20-25 raw. They're happy with it, but it wasn't necessarily in their grading pile. So I think it's a pretty good play with Otani, especially the earlier insert years.
The insert play is genius. I'm going to try to do that. And hopefully I'll get a chance to walk around. I've been stuck behind the booth Friday. I know you don't think it's as busy, but there's a steady stream. And I'm going to shout them out later on too, but shout out to all the podcast listeners who stopped by to say hello, some from the States, a lot from Canada as well. So that's always good to see. Anything you want to mention to those podcast listeners?
No, we appreciate you tuning in. We sometimes feel like we're talking to ourselves in a computer screen and forget that people even listen to what we're rambling about. So definitely eye-opening when, we're at the show and we're meeting new faces that are just quiet listeners, like people that just listen. They don't really participate, but you guys are listening. So we definitely appreciate that.
100% agree. All right, Tia, I'll see you back at the studio. If you listened to the pod, you knew right away that was Hyung. Our other podcast co-host, John, he was out of town, so he couldn't join us, but I know he was bummed out that he'd be missing the Spring Expo, and so hopefully he'll join us for the next one in November. Okay, got some final shout-outs, and I really hope I didn't miss anyone. If I did, please DM me, and I'll make it right, I promise. But Dominic, thanks for dropping by. He said he came right after a birthday party his 5-year-old had to go to. And I think he got to the expo, if I remember correctly, with 2 hours left that day before the expo closed. And yet, his first stop, he said, was at our booth. So I really appreciate you, Dominic, for even saying hi. And on the last day of the show, on Sunday, as we were getting ready to pack up, it was lovely meeting Brian and Natasha. Thank you both for your kind words. And I found out that they were vendors as well. So if you're in the GTA, go check out their booth at the upcoming Leaside Sports Card Show on May 24 and tell them their friends from Cards to the Moon say hi. And lastly, Alfred, thanks for stopping by as well and showing me your Joe Burrow and Alprin Sengun collection. I love seeing collectors who go for the complete rainbow. It just reminds me there's so many different collectors out there. We also had a few laughs talking about how sometimes we got to show our spouses that we're actually making some money selling cards. But sometimes we leave out the detail that we, quote, reinvest back into cards. And shout out to my church friends, Dan, Sarah, Will. Thanks for dropping by. Thanks for bringing our kids to entertain my kids, especially while I was really busy that Saturday. But again, it's always fun to see familiar faces, like I said before. All right, I just got a couple more clips to play before I end this episode. They were both on the pod before, and I saved these two for last because they both helped me greatly behind the booth as a vendor. First, you'll hear from my 9-year-old son, Bennett. He was actually just on recently, and he's back again, always eager to help Dad with his card content business, and also loves to rip as well. But actually on day 3 of the expo, he came with my wife and his little brother. So it was a family affair that day, which, just warms my heart to be able to share this experience with them. And the last guest was my booth mate for the 4 days. His name is Will, the most popular podcast co-host of Cards to the Moon. Please go follow him on his new IG page at Top Rope Pop, where he'll showcase his WWE cards. You know, one thing I know for sure is that it's way better to vend with someone than to vend alone. And I couldn't ask for a better booth mate to kick off this inaugural experience for me. So I want to get his thoughts as well on the show. And of course, shout out to Roy, who we joke that he's just busy making money with his Pokemon cards. But not to worry, he'll be on the pod for our debrief episode soon. Okay, enjoy the last two clips, and we'll connect again on the pod shortly. Thank you once again to all of our listeners. We truly appreciate you. And please keep in touch with us at 5cardguys, all one word, or at Cards to the Moon on Instagram. And hope to see you guys at the next big show. All right, this is day 3 of the Sport Card Expo, and I am here with another very special guest. He's been on the pod before. I think he's a fan favorite already. His name is Bennett. He's my son, and he helped me on the busiest day of the Sport Card Expo, setting up and trying to help me sell cards. How do you enjoy your experience?
I like this experience because I like sitting behind the booth, relaxing, looking at cards. I also like walking around and doing special events like the Upper Deck raffle.
Did you win the Upper Deck raffle?
No.
That's okay. It's hard to win. What's that?
I was very close. I was like 10 away.
Ooh, maybe next time. I know you helped Daddy sell some cards to some of our friends. Did you give them a really big discount?
Yes, I did. Like 50% off.
We didn't talk about this before, but it's okay because they're our friends, so we want to give them a big discount, right?
Yeah.
Did they appreciate it?
Yeah, they really appreciated it.
So what do you like doing better, walking around or setting up at the booth and standing behind the counter for hours at a time?
I think I like them both equally because I like walking around, looking at sports cards and Pokemon cards. I also like sitting behind the booth, relaxing and playing with my toys to entertain myself.
So you like doing both?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask around. I'll ask Uncle Will. He's a podcast co-host and see what he thinks of how everything was, the Sport Card Expo, setting up and being a dealer. Okay?
Okay.
All right, we are winding down to the Sport Card Expo, and I want to get Will's thoughts. You know, he said he would decide if he wants to walk around next expo or get a booth next time after this experience. Have you decided what you want to do?
I've had a lot of fun at the booth. The first 2 days, it wasn't too busy. There were some decent sales. I made some good money. But Saturday, a lot of people came around offering cards, and I realized I don't need to walk around because people will bring the cards to me. But one problem with that is I spent way too much money. So now I'm in crippling debt. And my wife is going to be super upset.
Well, I mean, the common refrain from you the last 3 days was, I got to stop buying. Yet you continue to buy. I'm not sure if it's an addiction or what. But I can't even explain it.
Yeah, it's like a buffet. It's like a buffet of cards that you like and you haven't seen, and people just keep coming by and delivering them to you, and it just feels almost like free to consume. And there's just money dealing both ways, and you lose track. And then at the end of the day, I look inside my wallet and I'm like, where's all the bills that I used to have?
Okay, well, you know, this is my first time vending, so I've been your booth mate for the past 3 days. How do you think I did? And you could be honest. I want to get your thoughts and where I can improve, what I did well on. Yeah, let me know.
Well, I carpooled with Roy yesterday, and on the drive home, me and Roy were just chatting, and I said, you know, there's this funny thing that Clark does. Every time somebody walks towards the booth, if Clark's sitting, he'll stand up. But sometimes people, as they're walking by the booth, they're just stopping for like a half second before they continue on their way. And so I'd catch Clark many times just kind of like standing up and then sitting back down, standing up, sitting back down, standing up, sitting down. And it's like this awkward dance that he keeps doing with people as they walk by our booth. But other than that, I would say you've done really, really well. We've had so many listeners come and talk with us, chat with us. And it's really encouraging and heartening. I was telling Clark, a lot of times when we do this podcast, it feels like we're just shouting into the air, shouting into the ether. But what we're realizing with all these listeners coming is it's bouncing back. Like, our voice isn't just going off into the distance, but it's hitting your ears, and you guys are coming back to visit us, and it's really great to see that happen and to experience that. And that's all Clark. So, Clark, you did really great this show.
No. It's I attribute our success to all the co-hosts as well, and of course all the listeners who make it possible for us to just keep on recording every week. But yeah, I'm glad to hear your insights, and no wonder I'm tired. I didn't notice I was going up and down like that, but I'm glad you pointed that out, and maybe I should just relax a little bit more. But yeah, last thing, highlight anything that kind of sticks out even in the 3 days. I won't be here most of tomorrow. That's why I'm kind of doing this brief wrap up, but at the same time, we will have a full debrief in a future episode with both you and Roy. But so far, anything stick out to your mind? What was the highlight of this Sport Card Expo?
Well, I've been beating this drum on wrestling cards for a few months now. And truthfully, I was a little bit insecure in it in terms of, is this really something that's worthwhile in collecting, in spending time, wasting time, spending evenings just looking at listings and all that kind of stuff. And definitely the highlight for me has just been meeting so many people from our wrestling community here in Canada. And even, we have one listener that came from Texas to visit us, and he's into wrestling cards, and it was totally unexpected. He listened to us before I started talking about wrestling cards. And so, yeah, that's been the highlight, just getting to meet a lot of people. I don't feel like so much of a fraud. And I feel like a lot of people were just looking to me to have conversations about wrestling and all that stuff. So it's been really great.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely vouch for that. A lot of full-on conversations Will's having. I'm like, wow, they're talking for a while about wrestling and their passion for wrestling cards. So that I can totally vouch for. But yeah, it was fun for me too. Like I said, we're going to do a full debrief later on. But what an experience. And I think we're both in agreement. Unless something tragic happens, we're going to be back here in November for the spring, not the spring, but the Sport Card Expo in the winter. So all our American friends, I know if you're from the South, it's going to be cold. It's going to be worth it. So we want to see you guys at that expo as well. But yeah, it's been a great ride. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.